Hi there, guys. Welcome back with Chris Comics. Today, I wanted to talk about Rings of Power, and I honestly have some concerns. Um, Going just by the trailers we've seen the last few months of the Rings of Power alone, and it looks fancy enough, and it'll draw a lot of eyes. But I think to long-time fans of the books and more recently the actual films by Peter Jackson, I think a lot of people will feel like the this show is going to be like a travesty almost, but it's going to look flashy. It's going to be very expensive looking. It's going to look a lot like The Hobbit in terms of like quality and CGI, I believe. But I think I speak for a lot of fans of the show when I say that we are very worried from what we've seen so far. What it's going to focus on. Obviously, I think it's going to focus on Numenor and that empire of men, and also the coming of Sauron. This is going to be like the whole birth of that whole spiel, and also the it's called Rings of Power. So it's about the forging of the Rings of Power and given to the elven kingdoms, the dwarven kingdoms, and the kingdoms of the men, and ultimately how the kingdoms of men fell and basically caused the big calamity and Sauron's rise to power at the end. From what you see, if you remember the first film, Fellowship of the Ring, when you saw that big battle in the beginning with the final battle of the alliance of men, elves, and dwarves fighting against Sauron and the orcs, that's going to basically end there with obviously Isildur cutting off Sauron's fingers and getting the ring from him, and basically ultimately defeating, in quotation, Sauron then, and then obviously the ring gets lost and then finally gets found by Frodo. Now this show is going to obviously take place in the Second Age. That's what they're saying. They're apparently taking this from extended lore, not written by Tolkien, but like by his son. His son is like appendices that his father wrote, and then his son compiled into appendices that they're using for the backstory of this whole show. So the concerns are like as follows. I mean, there's a lot of like criticism about racial changes and stuff like that, which are kind of valid in terms of like what Tolkien wrote back then anyway. Because it's a thing. It's a thing of its time as well. It's written by a white English scholar in England, who was like very vocal about anti-war sentiment, and he was like the older Miyazaki kind of thing. Like he's very like outspoken about environmentalism and anti-war sentiment back in the day already, or even like back then in the 1950s. So that it is set in, or it does come from a specific time period with different sensibilities, and a man who had not like the range of view and like exposure that modern day people have anyway. So it's already set in that, and that's a struggle to adapt that kind of thinking anyway. I think Peter Jackson did a great job with these films. I just think at the moment, trying to modernize that kind of text is very, very, very difficult. And it's very hard to, how can I say, translate that into a modern audience, for everyone to, be, how can I say, represented in a sense. But it's just very difficult, honestly, and I don't think it's going to work. It's not going to translate well, essentially. Also, making Galadriel into this like action hero type character, even though she's super powerful in the books and in the films of Peter Jackson, she's just not a very prominent character, which is what the show is trying to do with her, which is fine. It's just making her into, kind of like Lara Croft Tomb Raider type thing doesn't fit with what she is in the lore. But it's fine. We'll see what the show does. Let's just see what they come up with. But just in terms of the first trailers that we've seen, it's very action heavy, very flashy. But I think it's gonna ring hollow for a lot of fans. And yeah, overall, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I don't think it's gonna really change my mind on that. And also, given that they've not even shown, they've asked apparently Peter Jackson for advice, but they don't even want to give him the scripts to have a look at. So clearly, they don't want his input, and they are happy with what they're doing. So you can only hope that it's actually good. But yeah, that's just my small ramble on the Rings of Power, and I don't know, let's just hope for the best, honestly. But I'm not very optimistic. But yeah, let's just see what happens. Thanks, guys, for joining me for this short little ramble. Thanks, guys.